As we collectively witness the current information war via lamestream media, entertainment, political, and social media, even the average citizen or naive layman can recognize that something just does not add up. We have reached a point where it is difficult to know what information you can trust and whom is telling the complete truth regarding all that is simultaneously occurring today. News media has blended with show business, and feeling informed seems now to equate to being entertained. Affect over substance, the abject over conscious. We are inundated with consistently confusing topics and paradoxical scenarios, systematic tragedy and provocative reporting, soap opera-like controversy after controversy, the stark information binary within left-right politics, the intense tribalism of social groups and ideologies. All the while, hypersexuality, drugs, and vice are supplied through the back door.
Do you like
convoluted and negatively charged information consecutively rolled out for a Borg-like population of serial consumers and pleasure seekers, with the general disposition of shallowness that you would find in a puddle and the collective attention span of an infant. It's no wonder why this onslaught of maligned information has transformed the demographic as it has, and in such a short period of time. Or has this been going on much longer than we might be aware of? Interestingly, as network and mainstream information has become less and less reliable, the voices and ideas of the general population have become less and less tolerated. Possibly this describes an emerging authoritarian censorship campaign carried out by a self-appointed expert class, dictating the flow of what is to be known and unknown, guiding the Overton window only as it complements the magnum opus, forging and willfully shaping the societal forces by hand. A manual, force-fed system of parental dominance, if you will. For the overall good of the nation, of course. Well, since apparently its people do not possess the competence to make societal decisions responsibly, we sit back and witness the establishing state take the reins. Is the modern man and woman systematically being rendered to a low-functioning bioproduct of this establishing state? A mere cog in its gears? Has it used information against its subjects to produce a predictable and preconceived social outcome? Let's look into it. Let's address this idea of corporate authoritarian censorship. And first, and as we stated in part 1 of this series, the corporate state or private sector is the government state, and they are not independent of each other. Whether it be funding and investment, product and content, or value system and acquired goal, they are connected at the hip. And not surprisingly, network media has doggedly attempted to convince the public of otherwise, which seems to be the modus operandi of network media in general. To convince the public of things other than what is actually true. Hence the rash of recent and abrupt, conspired censorship efforts by the most influential and lucrative private sector media and information companies. Most notably Facebook. But for this installment, we will cover the censorship contributions of Twitter, followed by many others, of course. Of most importance is the fact that this is becoming a global trend. To emphasize and provide evidence for the global scale of this authoritarian censorship, we can look at WhatsApp, for instance, which is a Facebook subsidiary and global giant, also practicing the curtailment and censorship of information amongst its mass of users. In India, fake news psyops are conjuring mass bans and information curtailment as well. Also in Brazil, where more than 100,000 accounts were banned for alleged fake news. It appears the newspeak term fake news has been the new conspiracy theorist strawman to silence dissent. For example, we could reference the recent executed takedown of free speech proponent social media source Gab, or the strategic multi-platform takedown of the infamous Alex Jones. As they claim vehemently that they are determined to thwart false information, yet the polar opposite appears to be the case. In actuality, they aim to thwart the organic persistence of truth and reason by convoluting it with half-truths and false information, or outright banning it altogether. It all presents itself as the same tried and true problem-reaction solution. They create the problems via propaganda media. The reactionary masses take to their sides whilst producing partisan and tribe-specific content in the form of memes, hashtag movements, and social media presence. Followed up by what appears to be their solution: austerity, and ultimately, global state-enforced perception management. The revealed ministry of truth. Therefore, we are noticing all the rhetorical mind games and newspeak terminology infest politics, network news, and entertainment media. Red herrings are being utilized to censor all original and opposing ideologies that pose as threats to the world's state-cultural groupthink, also termed hegemony. The standout red herring terms you will consistently find in print and reporting are things like fake news and its alleged election tampering, wacko conspiracy theories, and recently the new hot topic and red button concept, memes. In fact, the EU is currently considering a type of ban on the usage of memes altogether, as they also pose a threat to psychological safety and the integrity of the population. Banning the use of memes? Moreover, banning and dictating the public's use of information based in arbitrary parameters, making certain forms of individual creativity and free speech illegal. Yes, indeed, and do not fall for the, oh, well, these are all private companies with their own guidelines in which you must follow, giving them the legal right to deplatform whomever they wish. Free speech is a governmental right that is not to be considered when addressing private sector matters. Indeed, it's an easy way out and provides perfect plausible deniability. Well, as we have mentioned and proven before, the whole government and private corporation dichotomy is a lie. Private for-profit corporations with governmental privileges. Right. Conflict of interest much? Though on paper they can make the justified distinction between the two, those of us that are in the know very well, in practice and in spirit, they are one and the same. But let's continue. So in October, Twitter decides to cut a swath through the social media field. It attempts to mitigate an alleged crime against humanity, or better, a dehumanizing movement of meme creators promoting the illustrious NPC meme, or non-player character, video game reference, which conservative users employ as a joke and criticizing measure to ridicule the current PC groupthink nature of the neoliberal political left. Yet but a precursor to many new forms of censorship to come. Similar to how Russian bots were used as red herrings to cover up the obvious scripting of federal political elections. These are representations of perfect public diversion tactics used as stumbling blocks in the road to truth. By using these diversions like Russian bots, Russian collusion, CNN versus Fox, and divisive factions like the Proud Boys and Antifa, you will find ripe and fertile grounds for the curation of a false political reality, manufacturing a subjective and saturated soup of domestic and international theatrics that the masses partake in dining, whereby social media affords us the means to all play our personalized avatars within a vast digital community controlled by fictitious experts, culture icons, and political leaders. A true simulation of sorts, a Sims society. So Twitter and the adjoined corporate Ministry of Truth perceive that humans are far too stupid to reasonably form their own perspectives. So stupid, in fact, that they must safeguard humanity from harmful disinformation that can involuntarily alter their perception of the world around them. Hence the avid pursuit in banning outspoken citizens online, forging a war on hate speech, so-called fake news, and dehumanizing meme content. When taking logic, ethics, and reason into account, all of this contrived activity clearly has nothing to do with a deep-rooted respect, moral responsibility, or empathic concern for humanity. Yet it has all to do with the expert class's innate arrogance and draconian methodology of global dominance, and essentially its utter disdain and disgust for the lowly and incompetent nature of humankind. Hence their parental-like guidance in everything we do, see, and even think. So what we find is the Ministry of Truth and Establishing State utilizing the development of meme culture as a divisive weapon to further build the polar extremes of left and right, stoking the flame of banter, increasing the level of bickering, and further dividing an already entrenched dialectic of ideologies. They have at the same time used the NPC meme to virtue signal a type of moral cyber meme, an ethical standard for which all internet users must adhere to. As if the dehumanizing nature of the NPC meme had crossed some sort of virtual line of ethics. Yet the neoliberal left and its mass media platforms religiously peddle smut to all ages for profit. They promote and advertise psychologically harmful material via the porn industry and music entertainment, Hollywood decadence and depraved reality television programming, and innumerable subcultures of drugs, death, and violence that have become commonplace in America. And with all that being said, the same neoliberal entities seem to be making this ethical distinction regarding what is to be considered dehumanizing or not. But we know at a worldview level, the leftist does not believe in an ethical standard to begin with. Moral absolutes are inherently antithetical to the neoliberal. Here we find but another inconsistency in the everlasting, inconsistent operating system of the postmodern technocratic state, where 2 + 2 = 5, because, well, they said so. As the alt-right and conservative right sadistically jump for joy over their self-serving wit and clever meme artistry that in many ways completely exposes some deep truths about the mental state of many leftist proponents, the neoliberals and leftists grow in anger and despair over their public humiliation. But what does this get anyone, other than a deeper-seated position beneath the thumb of the technocrats, who, after all, get the last laugh as they tower over both sides, adjusting their strings? The Fabian tactic of slow and steady, incremental change via culture. Today's social media and memes are the vehicles of culture. So they begin by demonizing certain memes, units of language, and forms of speech. Next, they will demonize specific perspectives or ideologies, like the Christian worldview, for instance, by appealing to emotion and inclusive ideals, forcing the public by way of guilt to acquiesce and support the idea and action of silencing all ideas and utterances collectively deemed inhumane or harmful. From ideologies, they will move to all-out physical groups of people and communities, as well as all free speech advocating movements, all to be brought down and removed completely from public sight. Right now, we are witnessing only the very beginnings of postmodern technocratic fascism. Corporate technology, corporate funding, and governmental control. Technocracy, the brain, bread, and brawn of the 21st century dystopian paradise and Darwinian nightmare. The virtual world has superseded the physical one, and the controllers of the virtual environment dictate and manage the climate, which is basically saying they control what we see and believe to be true and untrue. Therefore, rendering mankind no longer the guide of its own personal knowledge and perspective, but parasitical attributes of a machine in which it gains all understanding. Here we find that no, humans in fact are becoming the AI. The human slowly becoming a programmed machine with artificial intelligence. Since the natural use and acquisition of knowledge is being replaced by automation and non-stop social media data intake, bypassing the former walls of logic and reason and feeding programmable info directly into the emotive and instant gratification centers of the brain, creating gratification loops and programmed heuristics that become the entire composite of one's life, being, and purpose as a human. Here we find the startling law of reversal in action while they humanize machines by attempting to produce robots that can reason and achieve consciousness like humans do. They mechanize humankind to take on the properties of the machine, an android, foregoing its nature of critical thought, understanding, and introspection, no longer a creation in the image of God, but a creation in the image of machinery. Humans as energy resources are themselves becoming technology, but not in an inanimate sense, but a human one, a type of conscious technology, manipulated and steered from remote control. This remote control is mass media, no longer autonomous sovereign beings of nature, now Autobots confined to the specifics of their perspective software. Designed, managed, and produced by the established media technocracy,